my goodness. Welcome back, everyone, from this too short of a weekend. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to my favorite things. One being Bloom. I know we talked about it last time, but crisp apple flavor is my favorite, along with Glacier Freeze. It is like a blue slush in a can without the beatus. So good. It gives you that refreshing boost that you need without the beatus crash, is what we call it in this house. It is made with natural caffeine, which is green tea if you read it, and B vitamins. It is the perfect way to power through your day. Check it out. You can get it at your local stores or even the gas stations. Although I find some gas stations don't carry my favorite flavors, so that's depressing. But hopefully they come out with a strawberry and cream flavor, because that would be probably my second favorite. All right, and then on to the American Red Cross. Every 2 seconds, someone in the U.S. needs blood. Whether you donate, I donate, or your mother. That's 3 people. 1 person donating saves. It is super helpful, and it is our way to give back to the community as well. I have mine scheduled for April 21st, so make sure you get it scheduled as soon as you can, and if you can. All right, also I just wanted to mention on our website, we did add a new button. It is a cute little coffee. If you love our podcast and you'd like to donate and show your appreciation, you click the little coffee, it sends me $5. I can go get the jitters and the unhealthy caffeine only once a day. Otherwise, I turn a little crazy. And I don't want to be talked about on a murder podcast, so 1 coffee a day, please. So, we are going to move on to the main segment here. So today we're going to take a deeper look at the one disturbing, oddly, somewhat normal, socially awkward man that we talked about on episode 1, Jeffrey Dahmer. He murdered 17 men, young men and boys, between 1978 and 1991. He pretty much stayed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but they also showed law enforcement where they were failing, not only themselves, but as well as the people that they are supposed to be protecting. Societal bias, I guess, and community awareness. Just because some of the boys were different than the others, I feel like sometimes they looked past things or didn't take it seriously. So it made them also kind of scared to even say anything, if you think about it. I mean, if you don't feel like you're being heard, why would you waste your time, right? So Jeffrey Dahmer, he was born in 1960 in Milwaukee. He was also raised in Ohio, so he wasn't from Milwaukee. He was described as a quiet, socially awkward, and isolated person, and it just kind of got worse as he got older. When he was younger, though, he showed disturbing fascinations with dead animals, which, again, connection. Most murderers like dead things at young ages, so it's a little weird. But I feel like here we are ticking boxes, and we're not putting 2 and 2 together. Or maybe you just don't want to acknowledge that your child is a killer, I guess, or just weird. I don't know. He also liked to dissect them, so also gross. His parents did divorce, And then he pretty much sunk much more into himself, didn't really associate with other kids, didn't really go out and play, didn't have any friends, really. He did begin drinking heavily in high school, so he kind of struggled with the alcoholism throughout his life. He briefly was in the U.S. Army. He was discharged due to alcohol abuse. Shocking. He drifted in between living situations, eventually returning to Wisconsin. He committed his first murder in 1978, which was pretty shortly after he just graduated high school. And then there was a long gap. Nothing else happened until 87. So it was kind of a long gap in between that. But when they did resume, they escalated pretty quickly. He pretty much targeted young men, many of whom were Black, Latino, or part of the LGBTQ plus community. Groups that were often marginalized and underprotected at the time, which is what we were talking about earlier. If you don't feel safe, you should go out in groups, especially if, you just never know. Like, people target random things. Dahmer would lure his victims with the promises of money for photos or drinks. So if you're underage, he'd buy you alcohol, right? Yeah, why not? That's like saying, hey, get into my white van. I have candy. Yep, here I come. He would drug them, and then once they're unconscious, he murdered them. They included acts of dismemberment, which was interesting also. So he just basically didn't want whoever it was to leave him. He felt like everyone abandoned him, and he wanted to have control and not feel alone. So one of the things he started doing was drilling into the back of their skull. And he injected this substance, which at the time they weren't aware. But he was believing that he could render them permanently submissive to him, to do as he said, do as he wanted, go everywhere with him, basically be his bitch, right? Sadly, that's not how it worked out. It was just a delusional thought, and it was cruel. So one of the most shocking elements of the case, though, was how many warning signs were missed, which is what we were talking about earlier. In 1991, there was a 14-year-old boy. He escaped his apartment, Dahmer's apartment. He was bleeding. He was disoriented. Bystanders did call the police, and Dahmer convinced responding officers that it was just a domestic dispute between adult partners. They were fighting. They weren't getting along. And then the witness, the one who saw it, was protesting to return, to that there's something wrong and something doesn't seem right, and that there's no way that those two are together. This kid seems too young. But they're like, well, he said, we're going with what he said. That child, that 14-year-old boy who could have made it out, was later murdered because they chose not to listen. So it raised serious questions about racism, homophobia, and whether bias influenced the officer's decision to disregard. The department did later discipline and temporarily dismiss the officers, but I don't feel like that's enough, you know? It's just not, this was wrong, you didn't ask enough questions. Like, what did your gut tell you? That's what I'd be curious. What did your gut tell you when you're standing there and looking at this situation of a bloodied 14-year-old boy? And sure, maybe he didn't look 14, but That's like going to a domestic dispute now. Like, if you see someone's in trouble or panic or they're not acting right, can't answer your questions, can't look at you, you'd leave them there? I mean, I feel like that death is just as much on you, right, as the person who murdered him. You could have saved him and didn't. Was it too much paperwork, maybe? Who knows? Dahmer was finally arrested, though, in July of 1991 after another intended victim escaped and flagged down the police. Now, when the officers entered Dahmer's apartment, they discovered photos, which, hey, here's the pictures that I said I'd pay you to take, although you paid with your life, and I didn't pay you cash. But they also discovered the human remains, which basically showed how bad this actually was. It wasn't just pictures. And it shocked everybody. I think that someone could do that, which, hey, it was weird, but I guess you just didn't know how weird. In 1992, though, Dahmer, he pled guilty, but insane. So the court rejected the insanity defense, and he was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms. In 1994, though, he was killed by a fellow inmate while he was there in prison. Now, the case does continue to spark debate in several areas. The psychology of a serial killer, failures in law enforcement, media, how they sensationalize violent crimes, hence the guy that they just made a series about. What was his name? He tattooed his face and got a whole, like, half a skull on his face. Wade Wilson, that was his name. He's a big thing now. And everyone thought he was just so hot, so let's write him, and he's got all these wives, and yeah. I don't know. I think there might, like, I find this interesting, but I'm not like that. There also is ethical corners in true crime entertainment. So his story's been revisited in documentaries and dramatizations, hence the movies. And I think there also was a TV series because Evan Peters played Dahmer, which he did a fantabulous job. Notice how I have a thing for Evan Peters? It's 2 shows I watched that he's in. Actually 3. American Horror Story, The Beauty, as well as the Jeffrey Dahmer series. But it is promoting renewed discussion about how society tells these stories, whether enough attention is paid to the victims and their families. And it's critical to remember that behind the headlines, there were 17 lives lost, countless loved ones affected, and they deserve that respect. So let's take a few seconds here and give them that respect that they deserve. Play some of that creepy music while we give them that respect, right? Because how can you not? Whack. The whack at the end is just what does it for me. It's perfect. So, I do know that there were things in the freezer that he kept. So, and he would eat, right? Gross. You know what it makes me think of, though? Garlic steak bites and crispy potatoes. Little pieces, right? That's probably so disturbing to some people, but I think it's pretty funny. But I wanted to give you the recipe for the garlic steak bites and crispy potatoes because they are super good. And if you want, all you gotta do is come back to the end of the podcast, get the recipe, and then start the podcast over so you can hear the first part while you get the recipe. So what you need is 1.5 pounds of sirloin steak. Get it cubed or cube it yourself. 1.5 pounds of the cute baby potatoes. I like the ones that are colored with purple, brown, And I think there's yellow potatoes. And they're actually good for you. 4 tablespoons of any kind of butter. You can do the healthy butter. We are going to do some cholesterol here in this household today. And 5 cloves of garlic, freshly minced, or you could do the garlic. I do the garlic because I'm lazy. And you need a teaspoon of olive oil or avocado oil if you're feeling healthy. 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of thyme, some salt and pepper, and fresh parsley. Or the freeze-dried, because I'm lazy. You're going to roast the potatoes with the olive oil, salt and pepper, and paprika. Roast them at 400 for 20 to 25 minutes. While you're doing that, go ahead and sear the steak. Pat it dry, season it well, sear in a hot skillet for 2 to 3 minutes per side. You're going to make the garlic butter. So on low heat, you're going to add that butter, that garlic, and you're going to cook it until you can smell it. And as soon as you smell it, you know it's ready. So you're going to return the steak in the butter. You're going to toss it in. Then you're going to add in some potatoes. And then you're going to go ahead and put that deliciousness on a plate. And you're going to sprinkle that parsley over there so it looks like you went to a steakhouse. It's going to be savory, crispy, buttery, and all around delicious. Although I liked my steak cooked dead, all the way dead. And the boys like it medium well. So, you cook it as long as you feel. I'm cooking it until it's dead. But you do you. Thanks again for everyone joining today, and I really hope that you had a good time, as I did. I do just want to re-mention, grab you a Bloom, crisp apple, or glacier freeze. And if you had a great time, enjoyed this episode, I would really love to see you again, episode 3. And if you like to donate and show your support, go ahead and click that little coffee button. Send me a coffee full of ADD and bad decisions for the day. But it's fine, because I can only do bad decisions 1 time a day. But other than that, we will see you next time for episode 3. I had a great time. Bye.